before we get started, I know that the issue that I'm going to talk about is highly emotional and complicated for some people. People have very strong feelings about it, and I've noticed a lot of one-way backlash. But that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I felt like possibly there was a lot of knee-jerk reaction and a lot of context that was being missed. That's not going to be necessarily true with everyone. Some people will have full context and still be really angry about this. Anyway, that's the preamble. So work with me for a second here and imagine that you are an activist in an activist group. You are campaigning against animal testing or against racism or to protect the environment. Imagine that you meet somebody who comes into this group who supports your cause, you get along well with them, you get to know them, and you fall in love with them. Imagine that you spend years together, that you have a sexual relationship with that person, that you maybe even have a child with that person. Then imagine that the person that you see as a partner that you are in love with has been lying to you the entire time. They've lied to you and everyone you know about their entire identity. They are a police officer who is being paid to spy on you. So that is the context for the Spy Cops campaign. A number of women were in relationships with police officers who were being paid to spy on them and gather intel. I mean, I won't even get into the misogyny involved in that part because there's just too much to cover. You have probably seen all the controversy about Lush's support of this campaign. They had windows of some stores dedicated to it with a picture of somebody who was half in police uniform and half in like civilian clothes, meant to look like an activist. It had slogans like "paid to lie" and police tape with "police have crossed the line." Lots of people have seen this campaign as an attack on the police as a whole. People are boycotting Lush. There was a whole hashtag Flush Lush because they're saying that what Lush have done is like disgusting, terrible and damaging and insults the police force. I do understand that knee-jerk reaction completely, but I think that it is a knee-jerk reaction because I think it's a bad thing that people are more outraged at the idea of the police being like slighted or insulted than at the officially sanctioned abuse of women by our police force. Just before I carry on, of course, the police are important. We need a police force. There are many, many good police officers. The police are horribly and deliberately underfunded and undersupported by the Tories, and it is a huge problem. But there are good and bad police officers, and there are good and bad systems within the police. Pointing out the bad does not mean you're saying that there's no good. I don't think that anybody could say that everybody in the police force is good or that the police are always a force for good with a straight face, because we just know that's not true. I mean, if you just look at the police force in America, murdering unarmed black adults and children, we know that discrimination and abuse can take place within the police force abroad and here in the UK as well. So knowing that, should we blindly support the police in everything they do just because, you know, the person that you know who's in the police force is a good person, or because we believe that the police generally are good? Because I don't think we should. I think it's terrifyingly dystopian to see people saying that the police should be above criticism because they have so much power and they're not always good. So that's the mentality I've been seeing a lot, and I think there are obviously huge problems with that. Now to the actual campaign. One of the big problems that people had with it was that they felt that it smeared uniformed officers when actually it was undercover officers who took part in this operation. They say that because they've put the officer in uniform, it puts the blame on frontline officers. I actually think this is all semantics when you think about what they did was under direct police orders. What are we saying? Like, if the person was in uniform and they were asked to do something similarly unethical, would they have definitely said no? People also think that this is an attack on the police in general. Of course it's not all police at fault here, of course. But unfortunately, when people who are high up within an organisation make decisions for that whole organisation, then that's what they're doing. They're making the decision for the entire force. I saw some people saying to people who were in support of this campaign, like, I guess you won't be calling the police next time you're in trouble if you think they're so terrible, which, like, nobody is saying that. I don't know why I even have to point that out. I mean, actually, there are obviously some non-white people who do actually feel incredibly unsafe calling the police, so that's a whole other thing. I think that they put imagery of a uniformed officer because there's no other way to instantly portray, like, the police. If it had just been an ununiformed officer, nobody would have understood what that was at first glance. And that's the whole point of a window display, is to get your attention and convey the issue really simply. Peter Francis, a whistleblower who was an ex-member of the SDS, the unit set up to do this spying on activists, stated that he and the other officers who were part of this were uniformed officers. So, like, if we're really going to get into specifics, it's not inaccurate. I think it's important to say that at no point did the campaign materials lie or exaggerate. The police officers were paid to lie. Obviously, they have crossed the line. Like, we cannot have the police, who are meant to keep us safe, doing this to women. People are asking why Lush did this. People keep saying, like, why would a soap shop do this? Why do they care? I mean, first of all, they've openly campaigned on like political, animal and human rights issues for a really long time. And second of all, honestly, thank God they do. Lush don't have to campaign on issues. They could just sell bath bombs, but they've decided to use some of their platform and their money for good. I think that's a good thing. I think you'd have to be really cynical to not see that as a good thing in general. I think the most important thing to me is that what happened to these women is more important, and that is the thing that I think we should be outraged about. Maybe the campaign wasn't right for such a nuanced issue, but if you look into the context, if you read some of the articles and testimonies of these women, I mean, one of them was 19 and felt like she was groomed into a relationship with a high-ranking police officer. She said she wouldn't have consented to anything if she knew who he really was. You can see the damage that the police did to these women's lives in their like official capacity as police officers. It makes me feel ill that the people who are meant to protect us would do this. Since this all kicked off, a police officer tweeted very proudly that he went into Lush in Peterborough, made himself known as a police officer, and then had a conversation with one of the people who worked there, which resulted in them taking down the campaign. No matter how you feel about this campaign, this is obviously not okay. It doesn't matter if you're on duty or off duty. As soon as you say, I'm a police officer, you are invoking the power of the police. Anything you say from that moment forward, you are saying as a police officer, not as a member of the public. And so many people have supported this, and I find it so terrifying that people think it's okay for the police to use their power to have something completely legal that they don't agree with taken down. So in summary, this is an incredibly long video. My personal opinion on this whole thing is that I understand why people's initial response was to feel upset. I understand why the police saw that and thought like, why are you saying bad things about me? But the police force are one entity. I know they're full of individuals, and I know, as I said, individuals can be bad or good, but that's just the way it is. The police force are one force. And when decisions like this are made by higher ups in the police force, that is the standard of behaviour that they are holding the whole force to. That is what they are expected to do. Those are the orders they are expected to carry out. Theoretically, any police officer could be asked to do something as unethical as this if we consider this to be okay for our police force to do. I hope that the good thing that comes out of all of this is that people do look a bit further into the campaign, because a lot of people are saying, well, this happened ages ago, so why do we care about it now? But it's because there's an inquiry happening now that really needs support, and because the way that we react to this sets the tone for what will happen in the future. So yes, I hope that as a result of Lush's campaign, more people support the inquiry and support these women who've gone through something so horrible and just want to make sure that things like this can't happen in the future. It is an abuse of power, and it's really serious. And I hope that we can all go forward from this knowing that no one with a lot of power should ever be above scrutiny or criticism, because that is dangerous and it puts us all at risk. So just a light video today then. I will link some information about the Spy Cops campaign below, and I will link some of these women's stories. Try and see this from their perspective, and to think about how it must feel right now to have like everybody closing ranks to protect the police at all costs when the police should have been protecting you.